Welcome back to the Chronicles of Dragonlance podcast, where we go book by book and delve into the stories and the history of this beloved saga. I'm your host, Jonathan Howard, and with me is my friend, Shivam Bhatt.
Hi, John. How's it going?
Hey.
We are here for the ultimate episode of Dragons of Autumn Twilight. I can't believe we actually made it this far. It's like wild to think about.
Most podcasts don't get past episode 7, and some never even get through the first book, but we did.
That's insane.
Blew through both of those barriers.
I can't believe, it's kind of wild to think about the fact that we actually sat and did a whole friggin' book. We haven't finished it yet, but we're here on the doorstep home. And so to you listeners at home who've actually sat with us for a whole year going through this first novel in the Dragonlance saga, thank you so much.
Thank you.
We're super grateful for all the comments we've gotten on Twitter and elsewhere, and we hope you'll stick with us as we lead right into Winter Night. But first, before we can get to Winter Night, we do have to get through Autumn Twilight, and that means today is episode 19, which is going to feature part 3, chapter 14, Matafleur, the Magic Sword, and White Feathers. So,
last episode, it ended with the companions getting ready to rescue the children. They had prepped the door. There were women in a courtyard, and Tanis and the group of traitors were moving through into a cold, empty room that has a dragon in it, which is right before the room that has the children in it.
Yeah.
That's how this chapter opens. Into this room. It's a large, cold, empty room. Inside it are only 3 things: a basin of water, a bucket of rotting meat, and a dragon.
Yeah.
And this dragon is huge, over 100 feet long, much bigger than the black one from Zaxtharsis.
Zaxaroth, please.
Zaxtharos, sorry. Zaxtharoth.
Put some respect on its name.
I was combining Pax Tharkis with Zaxaroth into Zax.
I can't imagine how you could possibly make such a mistake. But yeah, so we've got Matafleur here, who is, huge-sized dragon, who is very, very old, who's been around since Huma's day. And
what's funny, because the companions are all scared, worried, and then Merida is just like, what are you guys waiting for? Come on, let's go. And she just keeps walking, and they follow her. And then they get to see the reality of the dragon, wrinkled, gray skin.
The great head that lay on the stone floor was lined and wrinkled with age, the brilliant red skin grayish and mottled. She breathed noisily through her mouth, her jaws parted to reveal the once sword-sharp teeth were now yellowed and broken. Long scars ran around her side, her leathery wings were dried and cracked. She is someone's grandma, right? Like, these guys are used to, think about the dragons that they've dealt with so far. They had to deal with Kisanth over in Zaxaroth. And this is a young, svelte black dragon that just obliterated Riverwind. And then they see the remains of what Pyros did to the Keishu and to Solus and everything. And it's just like horror and terror and scariness. And then they're like, oh my God, there's a dragon guarding the babies. We got to go. No, it's actually just grandma.
What they don't mention is there's actually 4 items in the room. Behind the grandma is a small bucket of those hard candies that your grandma has.
Werther's Originals.
Yeah, there's a little glass crystal container full of those little strawberry hard candies.
I went actually and I bought some of those recently because I miss them and I love them and I don't care.
Because you're turning into a grandpa. It's the process is nearly complete.
Look, all I'm saying is that when you are fed those candies your whole life, eventually you do start to unironically like them. But the thing that's wild, though, is you look at this and you're like, Matafleur's got her sewing tin full of cookies, or vice versa, a cookie tin full of sewing gear. I don't know what she's sewing up. But yeah, so we've got this giant crazy dragon who is half mad, who has been around for a very long time, who's been dealing with post-traumatic stress of her children dying thousands of years ago. And you got to wonder, first off, what is Takisis thinking, waking poor Matafleur up out of her sleep, and then foisting her on Verminaard and saying, all right, here's your red dragon. And he'd be like, all hail the queen. What? This is really what you're going to give me?
I guess it's good for a babysitter, though.
Yeah, that's why she's in here.
Because she wakes up and she's like, is it breakfast time already?
Yeah.
It's so cute because Marida's just talking to her and she's like, yeah, it's just breakfast time. We're going to go in, get him some exercise. And then Flamestrike says, well, make sure they don't catch cold.
Yeah, seriously.
And then says, oh, little Timmy has a cough, so make sure you bundle him up later, and then goes back to sleep. And then
Yeah,
And
and
Sturm
Sturm
is
is
like,
like,
it'd be like fighting someone's grandma. And then it's like, she's a deadly grandma, Sturm. Just remember that.
yeah.
And then a buzzing, ringing sound begins to be heard.
Tanis' cell phone goes off in the theater.
It's growing louder and louder. Everyone is looking at Tanis. He's just as confused
He's
as they
tapping
are.
his pockets like, well, I turned it off. It's on silent. What happened?
The noise seems to be bothering the dragon. And then Raceland's like, it's Kith Kanan's sword making that noise.
Yeah.
It's Wormslayer, and it's reacting to the dragon.
Yeah, and it's like, Tanis like, this is an abysmal time to remember that, buddy.
And then Flamestrike wakes up, and she's like, who are these people? What have you done? She's like, I've heard that sound before. I haven't heard it in centuries, but I recognize it.
Yeah.
And I smell steel. These are not women, but warriors. And Maria's like, they're not here to hurt you.
No, Marina's first words are like, don't hurt her. It's like, whoa, your priorities, lady.
Yeah, don't hurt Mata. And Tanis raises a sword out of his scabbard, and it starts to glow. And then Mata retreats from the light and the noise. And then Tanis is like, okay, the dragon is in the corner. Go grab the children and run. And so they grab the 100 children. Kids are better organized than any other group of adults I've ever seen. They get in line. They start walking. They follow Caramon. And this is so great because there's a small boy. And as they're going through the dragon chainer, he runs up to Tanis and yells at him, don't hurt my dragon.
Which is exactly what you could see like a kid doing, right?
This child's name is Dougal, and he's a hero.
Yeah.
There should have been a story about Dougal later, how he became a dragon rider and saved dragons from awful people.
He was named after Doug Niles, the game designer and author of like a million Dragonlance novels.
Oh, very cool. But some of the children, they stop and to say goodbye to her, and the dragon begins to cry. She seems very confused. This is where she's like kind of lost in her madness. Because she's like, no, don't fight my children, please. It's me you want, fight me. Don't harm my children. And then Tanis is like, oh, she's having like a flashback, right?
Oh, yeah.
Sturm says that the dragon will kill Tanis when the children are safe. And Tanis is like, yeah, I know. They're like, don't try to fight this. Everyone, let's just, you guys leave. Raceland says, I'm going to stay here. He'll stay with Tanis to fight.
Mm-hmm.
And then Sturm is stunned and he can't believe that Tanis trusts Raceland. And then Tanis reminds Sturm that the others and the children will need him out of there, and then they leave. And then Raceland's like, here, I'm here to fight with you, but I don't have any magic that can hurt this red dragon. And it's like, well, thanks for joining me to die then, Raceland. Like, what are you doing?
Well, he says there's little magic, but he can definitely buy us time, right? So he's like, when you start to hear me speak, run. And so Tanis is like, this dragon, he's like holding the sword up high, and he's trying to be like fancy and scary. The dragon literally doesn't care.
Nope.
She just heard the thing and got sent back to Huma's war. She is in another world. Like, she is definitely like thinking about the death of her children. And it's like, it's just so tragic. It's so sad. Like, this poor dragon has been like abused for so long.
They start to retreat. Mata goes forward. And then I think Raceland casts Dark. And the dragon is going to blow fire. But then she hears the children. And she realizes she can't blow fire because since she'll hurt these children, she just starts crying again.
Yes, yeah, like, don't fight me, don't hurt my children.
It's so sad.
Yeah, and it's like, but you were saying something earlier about like, whether she's evil or not. It's like, well, the innate nature of her is not necessarily being good or evil. It doesn't change her from being a mom. She's still a mom to her children.
I know. I think it bucks against the trend, though, of portraying Takisis as pure evil and the chromatic dragons as like her evil vehicles. And then you have this old dragon that is taking care. I mean, what's going to happen, we're going to talk about, is she's going to beat the shit out of a much younger dragon right now to protect these human children who that dragon would just kill in a second and not think a day about.
Right. Like, for instance, Pyros is exactly the evil dragon you're thinking about, right? Like,
yeah.
Do not care. I've got my plans and my goals. I'm going to eat these insignificant nothings. Matafleur is like, I took my children to war and they all died. I will not let that happen again.
Yeah.
Right? She is suffering.
But it just makes me think that, like, she's a good dragon.
Just really humanizing. It gives her a facet beyond just being scary. That's like one of the true strengths of Dragonlance. The whole saga does an incredible job of humanizing, of taking these 2D like just monsters that D&D had for so many years of like, oh look, they're just goblins, we just kill them, who cares? Or like, they're the evil elves, we just kill those evil elves and keep the good elves, or kill evil dragons and take their stuff. Dragonlance takes that and flips it on its head. It gives these people depth and character, and that's why it was able to last for so long, because it took, like, it sounds like we bag on Dragonlance a lot, but really, this series did so much to give actual dimensionality and like humanness to these villains to make you care about them. Even like Madafleur's in game, Madafleur will obliterate you. She is a mega huge dragon who will just ruinate your life, right?
Is she in the module?
Yes.
Okay.
Because the exact same thing that happens in the book, we will get there. I will read that section when we get to it. It's really kind of neat. But yeah, Madafleur is definitely in there. I mean, think about it. They not only added this to the novel where you add characterization, but they added this to the module where when you're playing through and you're going with your trend and your understanding of like, okay, I'm going to go kill the red dragon and take their stuff. This module forces you to stop and think about, who are these people? What are they doing? They're not just monsters that are just here to take their things and go home. There's actual depth and plot and like reasoning. So this is what happens when you go and enter the children's room, and for the first time with Marita there, is like, if the heroes begin to rescue the children, they file past the sleeping Flamestrike. She stirs in her sleep, but doesn't awaken until all but a few dozen of the children have passed, unless a PC, of course, wakes her up or attacks her. And when she wakes up, read the following. The great red dragon slowly raised her head, muttering softly, "Marita, you take all my children together. It's not easier to take a few at a time?" Blinking her one good eye, Flamestrike slowly looks around and sniffs the chamber. Suddenly, she screams with rage and springs to her feet. "You cannot steal my children!" She tries to attack the heroes, but she's never going to use her breath weapon when the children are nearby. That's what the text of the module says. It's like giving this character to this dragon, which is just like, it's such a bog standard villain. It's in this paragraph, it just upends the entirety of like 10 years of D&D kind of fundamental knowledge. And I think it just does a brilliant job with it.
Well, in a lot of RPGs where the goal is just to kill every monster in the dungeon, collect as much gold as you can, it creates a dilemma here, right? There's more character to it. Look, you're not just killing monsters, right? These things have motivations. They have feelings.
Mm-hmm.
Even the lowliest goblin has a dream. And it's usually not to be skewered by a level 4 thief,
right?
Or a level 4 barbarian. That's usually not what they're going for.
Yeah, seriously, bro had planned. I think that Dragonlance does just a fundamentally phenomenal job with this, of taking these characters and creatures and giving them a depth and an idea, something to do that's not just stand there and be killed.
I love the whole part of that happens with Flamestrike, the characterization it gives her. And I just think it's interesting because I don't remember any of the other dragons that we meet later on having this kind of ability to kind of break outside of what you would say their alignment is, where I do not see, and I don't remember. So I could be dead wrong, right? In book 2 and book 3 and book 22.
No, I mean, Madafleur is definitely in Chronicles itself. And like later on, there's one other dragon, my favorite character in the entire Dragonlance saga from the novel The Gully Dwarves, is a dragon called Verdant Leafglow, who is a green dragon who, over the course of the novel, realizes she doesn't want to be evil. She doesn't like the things that she is being forced to do. She doesn't like this fate that has been plotted for her. So Raorx, the god of neutrality in the Forge, comes and they have a discussion, and she literally changes her alignment into neutrality, and her green skin becomes more of a russet, like fall leaves color. And it's one of the coolest stories I've ever read. I mean, first off, that book itself is like gives Gully Dwarves, who are like the rats of Krynn, a whole like depth and dimensionality. And then it turns this dragon into just one of my absolute favorite characters in fantasy.
Well, I like that. I like that is, and I like that they gave Flamestrike this whole characterization.
Yeah, and it's really cool too. It's just really, really cool.
In later books, do we see Flamestrike when she's younger? Do we ever read about what happened? I mean, it talks a little bit about it in this chapter where it says
I think she might make a cameo in the newest Dragonlance novels that Margaret and Tracy have written, but I don't remember.
Oh, but so there's nothing in like the older stories where, like, I know, aren't there books about Huma's War where they talk and we never see her again?
Yeah, but We don't, because one of the things is a lot of the Dragonlance authors did not want to step on each other's toes, so they try not to write about each other's characters.
Got it.
Yeah, and plus Monofleur is so perfect in this scene that there's no reason to, like, she doesn't need more development. She is in and out and well done. Don't, gild the lily here. It's perfect.
All right.
So Tanis is sitting there. He pulls his sword out, and he sends everybody out. And Flint, who we've deeply forgotten, who we didn't even find out about during the cross-dressing scene or anything, suddenly shows up out of nowhere and standing next to Tanis, pulls out his axe. As they do so, though, they hear the terrifying roar of a different dragon than pitiful Monofleur, Pyros, who has discovered the spies and is chasing after Tasselhoff and friends.
And they thought he was gone.
Yeah, Taz's like, crap, he hasn't left. And Flint's like, I'll bet my beer that Taz is involved.
And with that, we cut back to Tess and Fizban, who were falling from a chain. The broken chain is plummeting to the ground far below. The three figures are clinging to it. Taz is thinking as they tumble, he's like, oh, this is what it's like to die. And he hears Seston screaming above him. And below him, he hears Fizban muttering a spell. He almost gets a word out when he hears a bone-crunching thud, and Fizban hits the floor, and Taz thinks he's going to die next. But instead, the air is full of feathers. He's surrounded by millions of feathers.
Yeah, because Fizban, what he yells at is feather, like he's about to say
feather fall, but he just got to the feathers part.
A big explosion like a down pillow factory exploded, and Taz lands on a pile of chicken feathers.
But Fizban didn't make it, and so Taz is mourning his loss, and he says he was trying to cast Featherfall, but only got the first part out. And above him, the cogwheel is turning faster and faster and faster and faster.
Oh, yeah, because guess what? It's holding up the entire mountain. So then we flip back to Tanis and friends who are down in the courtyard. Tanis runs out. He's got his sword up, and he's like, everybody get to the mines, get to shelter. We are going to die. Verminaard's coming back. Run, 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 run. They're trying to herd the women and children along.
Yeah, but the children are trying to find their moms, and the moms are trying to find their kids. So they've all stopped to do this sorting process.
Yeah, and then of course the men of the mines see their families, so they quickly go and overpower the few draconians that are hanging out there and run to go to their families. And now they're all just hanging out in 800 people milling about the open courtyard. Whoops.
Last place you want to be when there's a dragon who blows fire.
Finally, Tanis turns to Sturm and is like, where's Eben? And Sturm's like, last I saw him, he was running for the mines. I couldn't figure out what. Oh.
They both gasp.
Oh, of course, it all fits. Yeah, it fits, buddy. Wake up. Thank you.
Oh. And of course, Sturm and Caramon and Tika will apologize to the rest of the party profusely at this point.
Truly, there will be a reconciliation issue.
They're going to tell Raceland that they're very sorry that they ever didn't feel that way, and they'll apologize to go, no, they'll never do any of that to Raceland or Gilthanis.
Yeah, and so we flip over to Eben's perspective for once, and we discover that he's not cruel and vicious, he's simply self-serving.
It gives us a little backstory where it's like his family used to be rich, but they kind of lost it all, and he was tired of being on the losing side. And so when he saw Verminaard show up, he was like, you know what? I am going to win this time. And so he set up a fake resistance group and then sold everyone out.
Dude is a pile of virtue.
And he met Gilthanis' group as a fluke, but he improvised it, and it helped get all those people captured. Finding the cleric was a stroke of luck, and he was the one who ordered the men into the courtyard so he could find the green gemstone man. And so he's going through the cells trying to find all the guy, and he finds him, Barum. He's sitting in one of the cells. He's bemused, and Eben's like, look, I'm going to help you. Come with me. I'll keep you safe. I'm your friend. And there's this quote here. It's like, the man regarded him with a look of penetrating wisdom and intelligence. It was not the ageless look of the elves, but of a human who has lived in torment for countless years. Barum gave a small sigh and nodded. Barum knows this is not true, but like, for whatever reason, he doesn't care, right? Like, he's just like, whatever, I've seen it all before, so sure.
He's given up on life, baby. So yeah, good old Barum Everman here. We will figure out what's going on with him later, because he is a big deal. We've already solved one MacGuffin, right? We got the staff. We took care of that. We've got the platinum discs to the person who's supposed to have the platinum discs. We need another MacGuffin if we're going to have more books. Well, here it is. And then so we move out from Eben. Alistan is first off like, oh no, this isn't the plan. And all the gully doors are running, etc., etc. But we switch scenes to Verminaard, who is leaving his chamber angry, throwing away his gloves. And he's like, what's going on? Why are we recalling the army? We were supposed to be taking Qualinesi. What's going on here? And he goes and he tries to find Ember. He's like, I'm not going to bother using the saddle. There's only a bunch of slaves. It'll be fine. Surely this won't matter later.
Yeah.
The Draconian's like, look, we got maybe 40 or 50 of our garrison here, and there's like 300 men and women over there, and they're organized and stuff. Verminaard's like, this is stupid. I don't care. Ember, show up. Where the hell are you? And he goes there, and finally Ember flies down. Verminaard climbs up on him.
And as they're leaving, this is great. No, this is great. He hears weird sounds and mechanisms inside the walls, and he's like, I wonder what that'll do. Probably not important.
Yeah.
Big castles just make rumbling, clinking sounds. Mounts up on Ember, and then they fly up into the sky.
Bro.
Curiosity is not this guy's strong point. He's just like...
No, he's just busy right now. He's like, look, dude, I've got a problem that needs to be solved, and that problem's name is these idiots who are out in the field. There's a really great painting of Verminaard and Ember flying up like this. The cover of DL2 Dragons of Flame has Verminaard and Pyros and Toad just looking really cool. Like, Verminaard got a lot of attention because he was the first Dragon High Lord, and his design ended up depicting a whole lot of, like, setting up a lot about what Dragon High Lord should look like. And you see him on the cover of Dragons of Hope, DL3, which has got his big mace Nightbringer, which is this amazing weapon. Verminaard's super cool, though. He was a really, really cool villain, and I hope we get to see him for a long time.
Yeah, he's going to be a recurring character, I'm sure.
Yeah. So we switch over back to Tanis and Sturm.
Unlike a lot of the other chapters, this one seems to have a lot of cuts.
Yeah.
They're going from place to place a lot.
Yeah, well, I mean, they're like realizing that they're running out of book and need to get to the end of this really quickly.
When there's just a lot going on, and it would be difficult, I think, to tell it all from one point of view.
Yeah. And so we flip back over to Tanis and Sturm, who are sitting there and just kind of like moping a lot. Sturm's like, I can't believe I didn't see him coming. Yeah, so...
He's like, don't worry about getting the families together. He's like, look, the gates are going to open and the army's going to come back in and kill us. We have to get out of here. So just start moving south. Just push people to the south. Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
And right about then is when Ember soars up into the sky above him, and the dragon fear hits everyone. And then Ember's perching on this fortress tower, and he's like glowering, and everyone,
I love this description, by the way. It's like Pyro's sword from the fortress of Paxtarchus, his wings sleek, held close to his sides. His huge tail trailed behind him. His taloned forefeet were curled close to his body as he gained speed in the air. Upon his back rode the Dragon High Lord, his gilded horns of the hideous dragon mask glinting in the morning sun. Verminaard held onto the dragon's spiny mane with both hands as they flared into the sunlit sky, bringing night's shadow to the courtyard below. I love that. It's so cool.
And so he's sitting up there on a fortress tower, and at the same time, Sturm and Tanis notice Eben running with Barum, and Sturm gets really mad. He's like, he's not going to escape. And then Raistlin and Karaman are like, yeah, he won't escape. And they catch Eben, they throw him to the ground. They're about to kill him when Barum stops him. And in the struggle, Barum's shirt comes loose, and now we know why he's called the Green Gemstone Man, because embedded in his chest is a brilliant green jewel as big as a man's fist, and it glows with unholy light.
Mm-hmm.
All are stunned. So they're just stunned, right, as you would be if you saw a man with a glowing evil gem in his chest.
It looks really cool, though.
He covers himself up, and they run away, and he grabs Eben, and they both run away, and the companions just let it happen. And right about the time...
Yeah, I love that. Sturm leaps forward, and Tanis stops him and was like, look, it's too late. We got others to think about. And then Karaman's like, Tanis, look! And he points above the huge gates. And then a section of the stone wall of the fortress above the massive front gate begins to open, forming a huge widening crack. Slowly at first, then with increasing speed, the massive granite boulders begin to fall from the crack, smashing into the ground with such force that the flagstones cracked, and great clouds of dust rose into the air. Above the roar could be dimly heard the sound of massive chains releasing the mechanism. There is Tasselhoff's gun being fired. The boulders fall.
It's funny because it's like Eben screaming because this is happening on top of him. And it just says, Barham seems resigned to it. He's just like, not again.
It's exactly like the scene in Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy where like the giant whale and the bowl of petunias are falling, and the whale's like, ooh, I think I will call this Earth. What a thing. I wonder if it'll be my friend, Smush. And the bowl of petunias like, oh no, not again. Basically, boulders are beginning to fall just as Eben and Barham arrive at the gates, and Eben's terrorized. He's trying to shield his head. And yeah, the man next to him glanced up and gave a small sigh. Ah, there we go.
It's sealed shut now. They can't.
Yeah.
No one can get in or out from the main gate.
Yeah, it's not the main gate anymore. Now it's the front wall. And Verminaard is pissed. He's like, this is your final act of defiance. His speech had been interrupted by the fall of the rocks that made him even angrier. I offered you a chance of work to further the glory of my queen. I cared for you and your families, but you were too stubborn and foolish. You will pay with your lives. He makes his mistake.
Oh, yeah. Fatal mistake right here.
Yeah. Raises Nightbringer in the air and says, I will destroy the men. I will destroy the women. I will destroy the children. And at the touch of his hand, Pyros leaps in the air, draws a deep breath to prepare to incinerate everybody. And his deadly dive is stopped. Sweeping up into the air from a pile of rubble made when she crashed into the fortress, Madafleur flies straight at Pyros. And the ancient dragon is all lost completely into her madness. She's definitely seeing just the Knights of Silver, the Golden Dragons, the people who destroyed her family.
When we learned that the war was already over and she had begged her children not to fight, but they didn't listen to her. Like they went away anyway and they all died, right? So she had, the war has already been lost and she was begging her children not to go and they did anyway. And it says, now she hears Verminaard vowing to kill children and she will stop him.
Yeah, she's like, I will destroy the children, she heard. As she had done so many centuries before, Madafleur flew out to defend them. And Pyros is like completely caught off guard because this crazy old dragon just like flying out of nowhere. He's like, really? Grandma? Yeah, well, her teeth still cut you. She hits him, they tear, they have a big old aerial battle. And Pyros is like slashing out at her and she doesn't even care. She is in her death frenzy right now. She doesn't feel any pain and she's just like just punking on like Pyros over here.
But Verminaard...
Pyros rolls over backwards into the air, instinctive defensive action. Verminaard, riding without his dragon saddle, is like holding on and just like, what?
He falls off.
Gets flung off, falls to the courtyard below, and luckily it wasn't a long drop because they were still kind of low to the ground, and his armor is very good. So he gets slammed to the ground, and he's just bruised and shaken. And then he stands up, and then there's those four that he is standing who didn't flee. And so he turns to face them. The appearance of Madafleur and her sudden attack on Pyros get all the people snapped out of their problems, and they start fleeing like they should be.
The Draconian captain sends the 50 guards out that he has, sends out a wyvern to recall the army, but the people fight back. Right? There's way more of them. They won't surrender again. The companions are all split up, and here's where Laurana kills her first Draconian. I think this is how the chapter ends.
Yes, it does. Basically, she's like stabbing this guy. She's got the blood on her fingers, and she's like, what's going on? She's just having a real bad time with this.
It's a good quote. Let me read it. Laurana lifted her eyes to the sun-drenched blue sky. The world she might soon be leaving seemed newly made. Every object, every stone, every leaf stood out in painful clarity. A warm, fragrant southern breeze sprang up, driving back the storm clouds that hung over her homeland to the north. Laurana's spirit, released from its prison of fear, soared higher than the clouds, and her sword flashed in the morning sun. Little baptism by fire there, and she seems to have come out quite well.
Laurana basically stabs his Draconian, turns him to dust, and realizes, like, oh no, I need to fight to protect my family and my people, and I can't be a child anymore. And this is her big transition point. And this is like just where she becomes just one of the coolest characters in all of Dragonlance.
And that's how chapter 14 ends.
Yeah, it's real pivotal. A lot of stuff is happening here.
So much stuff is going on. Let's see. In this short amount of time, the plan blew up.
The plan, such as it was.
Yeah, Fizban died. Eben is revealed and then apparently killed off. We learn more about the Green Gemstone Man. We're setting up the big battle at the end, right? Verminaard fell off of Ember, and he's faced by 4 people. I believe the 4 people are Sturm, Tanis, Karaman, and Riverwind. I believe those are the 4 he's facing off against. I don't think it says, but we'll find out.
Yeah, it says in the beginning of chapter 15.
Also, there are 2 dragons beating the crap out of each other right above all these people as a group of families beat up draconians as they flee. It's truly chaos.
Oh yeah, this is definitely like the moment we've been building up to, this big, huge battle. And so like, chapter 15, the Dragon High Lord, Madafleur's children. We open up with Verminaard staring at these 4 dudes. The ones who defeated Onyx and Zaxxaroth, who escaped the slave caravan and broke into Pax Arcus. The knight from the broken land of past glories, the half-elf trying to pass himself off as a human, a deformed, sickly magician and the mage's twin, a human giant whose brain was probably as thick as his arms.
Okay, so not Riverwind, it's Raceland.
Because Riverwind's probably off of Goldmoon. Verminaard's like, all right, I can do some hand-to-hand. It's been a minute.
He's very confident in his abilities as a fighter and a cleric.
He's been blessed by the Dark Queen. He's got power.
Yeah.
He's like, these dudes don't have a cleric. He was like, well, maybe Ember will come. No, Ember's busy.
Yeah.
Madafleur has got thousands of years experience, and Pyros is still just a young and angry idiot.
Oh, it's interesting because it says that what she lacked in strength, she made up for in guile and cunning. She had been fighting while he was still in an egg.
Yeah. But here's the thing. They shouldn't be breathing fire onto each other because they're both red dragons. They're immune to fire.
Yeah, but when you're in the middle of a fight, you do stupid things.
Yeah, it's just kind of like, all right, bro.
Also, it's more dramatic.
Yeah, it's definitely more dramatic.
When there's like explosions and stuff.
Yeah, so then Verminaard shrugs and like, all right, you deal with your own thing. He can hear like Raceland telling his buddies that, remember, this dude's a cleric of the Dark Queen and can call upon her aid.
He does that real quick, man.
Oh yeah, why wouldn't you, man? They come in and they start to have this big fight. There's no need to talk. They know what they're here for. So he takes Nightbringer, which is this holy evil mace that he's got, which is such a cool weapon. He swings it because he is smart. He knows how to fight. He goes and he's like, okay, well, if I go and thwap the mage first or knock these people out, then I can make this a lot easier to deal with. So he goes and he touches Raceland and he screams a prayer. And I think he casts like cause light wounds or something like that, which is the opposite of cure light wounds. And he goes and just fries Raceland a smidge. Caramon, of course, loses it, starts swinging at Verminaard, but chaotically swinging, not like with any kind of defensive, like, so he's in like a frenzy, so he's not paying attention. And Verminaard fully expects this because he's done his homework and knows who these guys are. And he screams midnight and blinds Caramon.
Yeah.
That's 2 of the 4 down.
He's like, it's so fast because then he pushes Tanis to the ground and casts a spell on Sturm. And before the fight has even begun, it's over. He's basically won.
Yeah.
This is a good part because it's like Verminaard, he's praising the Dark Queen as he goes to kill Sturm. And then it says, he's suddenly stopped by the hand of a woman and a power to match his own, a holiness to match his unholiness. It steps out here because apparently the Dark Queen was not aware that the other gods had returned yet. We go to the point of her point of view, Takisis, in whatever kind of weird space that the gods live in.
Takisis lives in the abyss. The other gods live in the dome of creation, which is like, heaven versus hell. But yeah, so Takisis, of course, she had been completely caught off guard. She thought she was the only one breaking the rules and that nobody would see her.
And it says she sees a radiant god in armor on the horizon of her plans. She had not expected his return. She fled and abandoned her cleric. As evil always does, it protects itself.
Oh yeah. Evil turns upon its own, baby. That's a Dragonlance motto.
With the Dark Queen gone, Verminaard's powers are gone, and the spells that were affecting Sturm and Tanis stop working.
I feel like Takisis kind of gave in a little easy here. She could have definitely split her attention a smidge, but ultimately I think the idea was that she was not prepared to handle Paladine directly.
Yeah.
One thing is weird. It's weird to me that they made Goldmoon the cleric of Mishakal, the healer, but Mishakal never shows up in the novel except for like the very beginning when she's talking through Goldmoon's mom or whatever. But like, she's the main cleric. Why is Paladine a character? Why wouldn't she be a cleric of Paladine? It would make more sense. But sexism, and there we go.
So Tanis and Sturm rush Verminaard, who was now fully concentrating on Goldmoon. Riverwind is in the fight now. Verminaard starts to panic, right? He realizes that he's fighting by himself now. And while he was confident in taking on like 6 people, the goddess's help, he can't do it now.
Yeah, but he still does have his spells because he's able to blind Riverwind.
Yeah.
So maybe it just is that the holding spells that he had didn't work. But yeah, he blinds Riverwind. But Riverwind, unlike Caramon, expects this because he's like, look, I saw it coming. I know what it does. And he's like, I can still hear you. And so he goes, switches his sword arm, and then starts thumping at the Dragon High Lord.
Verminaard also can't see, right? He's complaining about the helmet.
Yes.
And he's backing up. He's trying to get his helmet off while he's fending all these people back. But he's surrounded. There's like 6 guys around him.
Soldiers at that.
There are 3 guys actively fighting him, right? There's Tanis, Sturm, and Riverwind are actively around him. And you can't keep all of them. And Tanis stabs him right in the back as he tries to remove his helmet. And then as soon as he gets stabbed in the back, Sturm stabs him in the stomach. And then Riverwind stabs him again. At the same time Verminaard is being put down, Pyros is about to defeat
Matafleur.
And she's weakened by a loss of blood and many wounds. She's going to save the children no matter what, it says here. And Pyros has kind of set himself up in a mistake here. There's like the mountain, there's Pyros, and then there's Matafleur. And she's not going to let him stop her.
Not at all.
So he starts blowing flames right into her eye. And it's like she goes blind, her flesh sears, like the skin starts to peel off of her skull, and nothing stops. She just hurls at him full strength right into the mountainside. And then the mountainside cracks. Then for some reason they explode. When red dragons die, do they explode?
Not really. I think it was just more poetic license. It just seems like these guys are just big giant like bags of explosive gas. The fact that Matafleur I love that sentence. Matafleur soared into him with all the force of her once powerful body, striking him like a spear hurled by the gods. Both dragons slammed into the mountain. The peak trembled and split apart as the face of the mountain exploded in flames. In later years, when the death of Flamestrike was legend, there were those who claimed to have heard a dragon's voice fade away like smoke on an autumn wind, whispering, "My children." I love it. Oh, such a good scene.
And that is how chapter 15 ends.
Yeah.
Is with the death of Verminaard and the death of Ember, the death of Eben, the apparent death of Barum, the Everman, and the death of Fizban.
And Matafleur, also dead.
Yeah, it is not a happy ending.
Although it is, from the one perspective, all the good guys won. Like the good guys survived. But here we are at the end of book 1. And you got to remember that Dragons of Autumn Twilight, when it was written, it was conceived of as a trilogy, but they didn't know if they would get to write books 2 and 3. They had this idea of like, we're going to write this first book and we're going to make it as complete a story as possible so that if we don't get to write books 2 and 3, at least this one exists as not a cliffhanger. So it's more a cliff slammer, right? So instead... But instead, though, we have this just really good, solid ending where the heroes come through, stab the evil cleric, take out the dragons, free the children, free the families. At least there's a conclusion of sorts.
Yeah, it's open to more books if it happens, but it does have a satisfying ending, which we're getting to right now here, The Wedding, which is the epilogue for the book.
Yep.
Autumn is ending, right? We are truly in Autumn's twilight now.
Mm-hmm.
We learned that it took the Draconian army days to re-enter Paktharkis because they had to tear down the wall or climb up it, and it had been defended by the Gully Dwarves, who were led by Sestin.
Good. Get your revenge, buddy.
And it had given the refugees enough time to flee into the mountains of the south, led by Flint, who was familiar with the area, because that's around where he's from. They found a mountain valley protected by difficult narrow passages into the valley, studded with caves for protections. And we learned that the valley had enough clean water and plentiful game. And basically, they've set up like this kind of refugee camp in this remote valley. They're safe, especially once the snow comes in, because all the passages are made impassable by the buildup of snow. So at least for the season, they're going to be okay.
I thought it was a really just beautiful kind of like layout that they set up here, this gorgeous valley, the autumn leaves, the kind of like vibrant life that they've got here after all of this just desolation and coldness. And the fact that we're going into like even colder times, right? So they sit there The people mourned their dead, rejoiced in the deliverance, built shelters, and celebrated a wedding. On the last day of autumn, as the sun set behind the mountains, kindling their snow-capped peaks with flames the color of dying dragons, Riverwind and Goldmoon were married. That is such a cool image.
And these are the kind of people who actually know what the color of dying dragons looks like because they just saw it.
They just saw one. And so, of course, they ask newly appointed cleric, minister, priest of the whatever, Elistan, to preside over their exchange of vows. And he'd been deeply honored and asked them to explain the ways of their people to him. And both of them replied that their people are dead, the Keshu are gone, their ways are no more, and this will be our ceremony, beginning of something new, not the continuation of which has passed away. And I thought that was kind of messed up.
I thought it was a little confusing when Goldmoon had a talk with Tika about how waiting is so important and that's their traditions. And then, but they're saying, I'm waiting because that's what's right and that's a tradition. But then they're throwing all their traditions away.
Yeah. But I didn't like that. I don't like this implication that like, they're like, no, we're going to discard our entire ancestral history for this random new book that we found. I'm like, that feels like such missionary logic.
It is. It's very colonial.
In the context of the novel, I understand, like, look, you got the gods back. This is the way they used to do it. We should do it the way they do it. We're newly members of this religion and stuff. But it doesn't sit right with me.
What about this religion is so all-encompassing that you have to abandon, like, all of your culture outside of...
Is there no flexibility here?
Colonial, and in the sense that, like, Christianity likes to... And we're using Christianity because we're in the Western world where it was used this way, is that there's nothing about Christianity that says you have to wear a suit and a tie. There's just not. There's nothing about Christianity that says you have to have an English name. There's just not. There's nothing that says you have to worship in English. And so there's a lot of stuff that gets tucked in that's just cultural erasure that is presented as religion. And it seems to be happening here too.
Yeah, it made me a little sad because I'm like, look, if my people had just been obliterated and I was going to get married and start a new thing, I would not be like, my people are obliterated, so let's just move on. I would be like, this is my honoring and remembrance of them. I'm going to keep this culture alive, right? Like, that's what I did.
Yeah.
It's funny because, like, when I was working with Margaret and Tracy on the newest books, that was one of the things I had to talk to them about. I'm like, look, you don't abandon your cultural traditions just because you move or just because you live in a place that's not your culture anymore. That's, in anything, that's the opposite. You strengthen that, you assimilate, but you also keep to the old. And I don't know, but I guess Riverwind and Goldmoon, of course, has been directly touched by two different gods. So she's got like a much more kind of like personal context and reason here. I don't know, whatever. This is what they wanted. This is what they want.
Elliston has studied the discs, and he found that the ancient gods' teachings and told them to write their own vows. And then their vows would be spoken before the gods and last beyond death. And this is LDS Mormon doctrine right here.
Yeah, in the annotated chronicles, Tracy is like, this is a fundamental belief of my faith.
That's not quite true because LDS, you can only be married for time and all eternity in temples, in those big Mormon buildings that you see that no one seems to go into. They don't hold normal. There are two kinds of buildings in like the LDS church. There's your regular meeting halls where the congregation meets every Sunday and they do normal, where they have Sunday school and they have Bible study and they take the sacrament, the water and the bread as symbols of Christ. And then there's the big bright buildings that are white and they look like castles and they have a gold statue on top of them. Those are called temples. And in those places is where you take out a bunch of secret rites and secret rituals that one of which is marriage for. And so it is a fundamental tenet of and Mormon theology and doctrine. You're sealed for forever. And so if your parents were sealed and you're sealed and your kids are sealed, it's like this, it's presented as this unbroken chain. And the goal of Mormon doctrine is eventually they do baptisms and marriage for the dead as well, because the goal is to create an unbroken chain from you and all your children, and then all the way back to Adam and Eve, right? That's the goal, is that the family tree of humanity will be rebuilt and recreated, and will all literally be a giant, enormous family in heaven. That's the goal. And it's like a nice idea. It's just creepy when they're doing it for people who don't believe that that's like the goal, right? The LDS church has gotten in a lot of trouble for doing genealogy work and like baptizing people who are dead, who they never asked to be baptized.
Right. Like that feels just like rude.
Yeah. Or marrying people after they're dead and sealing them to their children after they're dead, right? So it's a beautiful idea when you think about it, where it's, oh yeah, we all want to be a big family, we want to live forever, but it also gets...
Yeah, but then it's like you examine that logic a little bit and you're like, okay, well, what? Is grandma always going to be grandma aged when we're in heaven? Or is she going, what is the ideal?
No, your grandma's going to be hot. She's going to be hot grandma.
Like,
Everyone's going to be hot.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm not going to sit and torch some of these traditions, but like,
as Tracy says, that's fundamental to his religious faith, and it absolutely is.
And it's important to I mean, look, he wrote the story from a Mormon perspective, and that's what we get, and that's fine. Like, we go in there with this understanding, and you will have a much better time.
The other part is they make gifts for each other, which is an old Kyushu custom that they do decide to keep, even though they just said they were getting rid of all their Kyushu customs, except for this one.
Yeah, I don't know, but I thought it was a really cool... I thought this was actually very sweet. They have to make each other's personal ring or whatever. And so Goldmoon makes one that was they have a lovely little, like, kind of wedding ceremony. All the heroes are there. They're all dressed up. They look very pretty. Tika is sitting there. Et cetera, whatever. So these guys have to sit there and they first exchange their vows. They have to have all the companions show up. They all march in. They all kind of like are dressed up and fancy looking. Goldmoon's hair is cascading down her shoulders in streams of molten gold with silver. Her hair was crowned with autumn leaves. She wore a simple fringed doeskin tunic, which she had worn through their adventure, and has the medallion of Mishakal and her bride gift there. And Tika is, of course, walking in right behind her, and it's got like the whole, like, I'm a 16-year-old dreaming of getting married myself. That's that whole sentence right there is like, beginning to think that this great mystery shared by men and women might not be the terrifying... It's like, oh, come on, please don't be condescending.
It's weird because their vows are poems, and the poems are really much less about their feelings for each other and what they want to do, and much more like, it's basically in their vows, they've summed up the state of the world and how love can overcome it. And I was like, those seem like really weird marriage vows.
Yeah, like, so, the men come in and like Raceland's holding a staff of Megius instead of a torch, et cetera, et cetera. These guys are all like dressed up. They're very nice. Elistan brings them together and says, like, your love and faith that brought hope to the world. Each was willing to sacrifice their lives for the promise of the hope. Each has saved the life of the other. The sun shines now, but already it's razor dimming and night is ahead. It's the same for you, my friends. You will walk through much darkness before morning, but your love will be a torch to light the way. I love that paragraph. As a person who does a lot of weddings, I've definitely cribbed it and used it many times. And then there's like some other nonsense that they bring in of left hands and hearts and rings. And yes, we're Americans. We understand how weddings work. Michael Williams, when he was talking about the vows that he wrote for them, he was like, I was thinking of Mark 13:7, where it talks about wars and rumors of wars. And I'm like, that's a weird thing to draw from if you're going to look in the Bible to write wedding vows.
Well, it's fine to look in the Bible, but most people look in like
Paul,
Song of Solomon or Psalms or the love parts, not the wars and...
Yeah, love is patient, love is blind, not like war and wars unending. We don't go to like the tragedies of like, the prophet Elijah or whatever.
Yeah, you don't go to Revelations when you're writing wedding vows to talk about the whore of Babylon and the seven-headed dragon, but like, here we are.
Yeah, their vows are fine, I guess, whatever. That's not my problem.
Goldmoon vows to Riverwinds. It's basically, war has settled in the north, skies are full of dragons, but you and I, through a burning plain, through darkness of the earth, affirm this world, its people, the heavens that gave them birth, and breath that passes away. This altar where we stand, and all those things made larger by the promise of woman to man. It's like, what? I get it, love's important, but like, you
really? This is like, yes, that's so sweet and loving, and definitely what I want to be hearing from my wife.
Yeah.
I've waited literal months and years and struggled to try to marry you, and this is what you tell me. We're going to die. Anyway, so the vows, they talk, and they exchange gifts, and Goldmoon hands hers to Riverwind. He unwraps it, and it's a ring plaited of her own hair, bound with bands of silver and gold, as fine as the hair they surrounded, which Goldmoon had asked Flint to basically make for her. And I was like, that is actually really cool.
Yeah.
That's really, really cool.
The melted down of her mom's jewelry. So I like that idea too, where she took her mom's jewelry
and then her own hair and bound it together. I think that's sweet. That's really rad, actually.
Yeah.
And the idea of like a braid of rings is super cool. Riverwinds, though, is the one that I was like, oh, I want that. Which is, he found a Valenwood branch that was spared by a dragonfire and carried it in his pack. And then he took it and he polished it, and it turned to a rich gold color marked by streaks and whorls of the softest brown. And then he carved it into this ring. And I'm like, damn, I like, when I got married, I asked my wife if I could get a wooden ring like that. And she was like, you could, but it'll like warp and break because we don't live in a fantasy world. And I'm like,
Yeah.
darn.
Yeah, because all the moisture from your finger.
And then if I asked her if I could get Tanis' ring, which is like the one with ivy leaves, and she's like, I hate ivy. And I'm like, fair. Fine.
After the wedding, there's a big feast. Lorena's talking to Elistan. Tanis acknowledges the changes in both Lorana and Elistan, right? Because Elistan is now like this priest of Paladine. He married them in the name of Paladine.
Mm-hmm.
This wild part here where Sturm points out to Tanis at the edge of the party, avoiding other people, it's Barum, right? He's like, isn't that the guy with the green gemstone in his chest that we saw get covered in rocks? And Tanis is like, I think it is. And they go to try to find him, but like, it's a big party. There's a feast. Some people get in the way. And then the very next time where they try to find him, he's not there. So Barum, the green gemstone man, is still alive. The MacGuffin is still out there.
Mm-hmm.
There's dancing, right? It's a party.
Yeah.
The companions can't seem to, at least Tanis can't seem to enjoy the party. Goes looking for Raistlin. Taz follows him and overhears their conversation. And the book ends on like this real downer where Raistlin says like, I see death and destruction. How can we have hope? He's like, if you have hope, it's a denial of reality. He's like, how can we defeat dragons? But there is no Huma. There are no dragon lances. It annoys me here because both Raistlin and Tanis are like feeling hopeless and down, and Taz is listening. He's overheard them, and Taz has the answer. He could just tell them, hey guys, when I was in the fort, I thought, but it doesn't happen that way.
Nope.
Taz worries this might be the case, though recently he had been feeling they were doing something important. Their adventure had purpose. Even the small things, he had never thought everything could be for nothing. And the book ends, and it says, still, the Kender said softly, we have to keep trying and hoping. That's what's important. The trying and the hoping. That's what's most important of all. Something floated gently down from the sky, brushing the Kinder's nose. Taz reached out and caught it in his hand. It was a small, white chicken feather.
Yep. I thought that was actually a really cool image, really poetic. It's like, hey, guess what, bro? You haven't been forgotten. The god is still with you.
I do think it's hilarious that while the Paladine is the platinum dragon, actually his symbol is a chicken and a chicken feather. The sign of hope from the god of good is a chicken feather. Like, it's one of his holy symbols is a chicken. Like,
the sacred whoopee cushion.
Yeah, I just imagine like a mural in like, or a stained glass window, right? You know how
with all these symbols of the gods in it.
Yeah, like, you know how like Aphrodite is holding, like, has her holy symbols that she holds, right? She's always on a seashell. There's some birds and stuff. So you have Paladine, right? This big, and behind him there's like the image of a dragon, and in one hand is a sword, and then tucked in his other hand is a white chicken.
Look, man, as a Hindu, I've seen a lot of pictures of gods who have like weird animals or like nooses, or like there's one god who's got like a fan and a tissue napkin as like kind of like the handkerchief of the deity. I'm like, okay, well, I get what you're trying to do here, but it's like,
I love it.
I thought it was still really a poignant scene and a poignant way to end the book with Taz, the main heart of the story here, getting a message from Paladine saying, look, you're on the right path. Keep going. It looks bleak right now, but it's going to get better. And if not, you're still on the right path, and I'm still here with you. I don't know. I just really, really liked that. I thought it was a really exciting way to end the story.
You think it's going to be a downer, and then there's the hope. I like the hope, and I like that Fizban is showing them that he's still there with them.
Yeah.
Right after that part, the end of the book, we get this
shortened weird poem of Huma.
Yeah, the Song of Huma is, and it's quite long, actually. I was kind of surprised.
Yeah, it's like 4 pages long, 4 or 5.
And I thought it was going to be like a saga, like a Norse saga, or kind of like a hymn to like some of the hymns that we have.
Yeah, A hero saga.
to Zeus or like the Iliad, and it's nothing like that at all. And
It's basically just the story of Huma, but told in a way that makes it hard to read.
Yeah, it's
And it's funny because like Michael Williams in the Annotated Chronicles has a note that says, every time I've seen Dragons of Autumn Twilight in a used bookstore, the last page of this last poem has been missing. I'm not sure if it's a binding problem or some kind of divine message that the thing is too long. I lean toward the latter. I wish more of it was the quality of the first and 6 stanzas. And I'm like, bro, yeah, it's fine. It's whatever. But like ending with the Song of Huma kind of gives you more of a setup of like where they came from and where they're going.
I actually think it takes away from the ending.
Yeah, it does. It's like, it feels distracting.
Put that stuff at the very beginning of the book to kind of set up what the whole book is going to be about. Don't dump it at the end when we've basically got the story of Huma so far from the bits and pieces that we've heard through the whole narration. So there's nothing new here. It's just confusing and not very clear, right?
Yeah.
It takes away from the hope part. It takes away from that nice moment we had where Taz is, despite his friends getting him so down, he's still like, no, I gotta fight. I gotta hope. And then that's reinforced, right? He's like, yes, you're on the right path. And then it's like, now read this 4-page poem that has nothing to do with anything.
Seriously. They do set up where they're going, though. Tanis and friends were talking about plans to travel south to find the legendary seaport city of Tarsus the Beautiful, where they hope to find ships to carry people from the war-torn land. And the next book starts with them kind of heading in that direction. However, there was a whole segment that was missing, the travel between Pax Tharkus and showing up at Tarsus' doorstep. And in 2007, about like 20 years or something after this book, after Autumn Twilight and Friends had been written, well, in 2005, I was at Gen Con and I was hanging out with Margaret and Tracy. They were just sitting there talking. They're like, I wonder if there's a story there with the dwarves. And it's like, well, I mean, if there's a story, we should try to find a way to tell it. And I was like, oh, that seems interesting to talk about. And then they turned and noticed me there and they were like, you don't get to say a word about this ever. And I was like, oh. And basically what had happened was that I overheard and sat in on the conversation that led to the filler book that took place between Dragons of Autumn Twilight and Dragons of Winter Night, called Dragons of the Dwarven Depths, written in 2007, which takes place it's immediately after they leave Pax Tharkus. They head south to go to Thorbarden, the home of the dwarves, and they're trying to find the Hammer of Karas. They're trying to find the helm of the Dwarven King. It's part of the module that was DL4. The module takes place in there entirely, and it was never told in any of the stories of the novels. So people were always like, what happened to this chunk? And they finally told that story, and it was really good. They told a whole trilogy that they did of interstitials between the 3 books. Frankly, they're some of the best writing that Margaret and Tracy have done. However, we're going to go in linear order first and just do the main chronicles. So we're not going to go to Dwarven Depths right now, but it is a really good book. It's really, really fun. It tells a very cool story. It's mainly about Flint dealing with going home and seeing his
It's surprising how much of the modules didn't make it into the books, though, right? Like you're saying, there's a module where they do this, and it's just not there.
I think it was a smart decision on the grand scheme of things to sit there and be like, okay, what needs to be here for the purpose of the game, and what part can we just elide in the novel that'll actually get us to the story? You can just kind of hand wave chunks of the modules and say and now they appear here, without having to worry about the player saying, well, how did I get from here to there? And then having to do a thing. This is just we can just snap our fingers and they're just now here. And I think they made some good choices with the edits that they chose to, and the places that they chose to make these snips to show up to tell a bit more coherent story. But here we are at the end of Autumn Twilight, our year's journey. What do you think, my friend?
There was so much that I didn't remember about this book. It's good. And if you were just reading this book, it goes really fast.
Yeah.
That was one of the things when I was reading the chapters individually, I was like, it goes at a good clip. This is good storytelling. It's funnier than I remember it being.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of humorous parts. I remember Taz being the funny part, but I didn't remember Fizban being as funny as he is. I didn't remember Raceland having the sense of humor that he does. It has me excited about the rest of the trilogy. I'm a little worried once we get to Legends, because I remember that being much more teen angsty, and that could have just been...
It's still very good. I'll be honest. It's still very good. For me, rereading Autumn Twilight and doing a close read like this was great because I forgot how good their writing was initially and how well they set up and established the story. And they create a whole world in this novel that leaves so many hooks for so many places for people to go and develop and build out. And as we see that over the course of 200 novels, that they go and really expand and flesh it out, it really just drove home what it felt like to fall in love with this series when I was a kid. It felt really good to read. Like, this is one of the best debut novels I've seen. Like, from two people who are not novelists, who were just like working at a game company and just threw a thing together, is fantastic. It tells a really, really good, solid story.
It's wild because I think it was maybe too early, if in the sense that everything is a franchise now, right? How many Marvel movies are there? And I know Marvel comics have been plugging away at it for decades and decades and decades. But I almost feel as if this first book had just come 10 years later, the books would have been still popping right at the time when every studio was trying to create a giant universe, right? We got the Marvel Cinematic Universe and the DC Cinematic Universe and the Star Wars Cinematic Universe. All these people were trying to build that stuff, the Harry Potter Cinematic Universe. And it feels that if this had all just come 10 years later, we would have a Dragonlance Cinematic Universe.
That's only in my dreams, man.
No, because it's such a huge franchise and it's so successful.
It's such a huge franchise.
I just think it was just too early. And it was just doing things. D&D was in that kind of franchise model way before Hollywood came to it. And I think probably now the reason it hasn't happened yet is because if you try to pitch Dragonlance to someone, you have to not tell them that there are 200 plus books because that just scares them away. You would almost have to lie about it. And you would almost have to have new people come in who aren't super attached to it, because I would try to cram everything in, right?
Oh, yeah.
You can't do that. You have to start with just like one Iron Man movie.
If I was going to pick a Dragonlance novel to start with, I would start with the story of Huma. Huma, the silver dragon fighting against Takisis, is a very simple, contained story to tell, and it sets up the whole world. Or you have to do like Dragons of Autumn Twilight, and like they tried that animated movie and it was garbage.
You do it small and tiny and you set the hooks in, and if the franchise got bigger, like everyone does, then you could pick up those hooks.
Yeah.
Which is exactly what they've done with like the Marvel and the Star Wars.
Or like the Wheel of Time remake.
Whoever would have thought from Star Wars that they would make a TV series based on one guy, based on Rogue One, right? Like a side story of a side story. And it became like the best Star Wars TV show and one of like the best prestige TV series ever.
Yeah, for sure.
That story is in Dragonlance in one of those 200 novels, but you can't get to it until you flesh it out a bit. And so it just seems that they were doing things way early. If they had done it 10 years later, we would have a Dragonlance cinematic universe. And now it's not where Hasbro's not interested in that anymore. Hasbro's not interested in Dragonlance, right? Hasbro's not interested.
Well, I mean, they did just put out the new Dragonlance kind of like game, but it had nothing to do with Dragonlance.
No, and the movie they did is set in, it's not Eberron, it's set in...
No, it's set in Forgotten Realms.
In Forgotten Realms, right? No, it was a great movie, but I don't want to see a bunch of Drizzt movies. Like, and that's where that's going, man. That's what we're going to see.
Well, look, dude, Forgotten Realms won the battle with Dragonlance for which series gets to live. I've always been bitter about that, but that's okay. That's why we have this podcast. Anyways, my friends, thank you so much for joining us on this trek through Dragons of Autumn Twilight. I loved it. There are so many fundamental things here that become so important, and so many things that were just one and done and never seen again and we just don't talk about. I don't know. It's a really wild and cool story. I mean, yeah, at its core, it's literally just a dungeon crawl. But here we go. We're leaving the Autumn Twilight and heading into the winter night, baby. Stay tuned.
Thanks for joining us.